Okay, so now what is meaningful tourism? So the organizer of this webinar, together with the Institute of Tourism, is a Meaningful Tourism Center. So we are a non-profit organization based in London, but the headquarters is here in Kathmandu, Nepal. And we have, of course, partners in different countries. And so we have basically two different departments. One is working with the Chinese Outbound Tourism. And so this is Coatry China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, which I have been organizing since more than 20 years. But in the last few years, more and more important has become the part where we talk about meaningful tourism. And the Meaningful Tourism Center is providing research and training, and we will talk about the training more today and consulting services. And so I have been in this field for already for some time. So if you see on the next slide, just briefly, I've been working for many years as a professor, different parts of the world for international tourism management. Just maybe to mention that I'm a proud fellow of the Royal Geographical Society and the Royal Asiatic Society. With the Royal Geographical Society, King Charles III is our boss. But more importantly, now is that last year I moved away from Europe and now I'm based in Kathmandu, Nepal. So, and you can see on the photo on the right-hand side, this was last week. I talked about last week at Guangzhou at the GITF where we had the Meaningful Tourism Forum. So, meaningful tourism, if we go to the next slide, is a paradigm which basically is very simple, saying basically to have everybody has to be happy. So it's not rocket science, and every family knows your spouse has to be happy, your kids have to be happy, your mother-in-law has to be happy, the neighbors have to be happy. Otherwise, you can't have a harmonious family. And in tourism, it's the same that we all main stakeholders, and we defined six main stakeholders. I will tell you in a minute about. I will tell you in a minute about. Not yet. So they are all need to receive objective benefits, which means money, regional development, infrastructure development, not destroying the environment and the local culture, and subjective satisfaction. So people have to be happy about what tourism is doing. And without that, you cannot have a sustainable development and you cannot mitigate and adapt to the big topic of the coming decades, climate change. And so you need this to successfully perform transformative processes because we all will have to change our business in tourism, our life basically, as the world is changing very fast. So, what are the six stakeholders? Uh, so there are, of course, the visitors or for hotels guests, the host community, and the tourism employees. And this is a part which mostly have been forgotten. And as a result, we see all over the world now, people don't come back to the industry. Students are not so much interested anymore to study about tourism. So we are lacking people. Then we have the companies themselves. They need to earn money. They even have to make a profit so they can invest. We have the government on different levels. They can get income taxes from tourism, but also they can use tourism as a regional development tool. And of course, very important, the environment, so that it's a stakeholder, which is then, of course, trees can't talk. They are represented by NGOs on different levels, and we have the local environment like air pollution, which is local, and the global like global warming. And so all these stakeholders have to be getting benefits and satisfaction from tourism, otherwise it doesn't work. So on the next slide, you can see that this is a holistic approach, therefore. So many of the approaches we have been discussing are looking for some parts of the some aspects, some stakeholders. Some people are only looking at environments, and people are only looking at host communities, but we have to look at all of them. And the second part is very important, meaningful tourism, that we say you have to have measurements. What you can't measure, you can't manage. So you have to have key performance indicators for each of the stakeholders to see how we can improve their situation, their benefits, and their satisfaction, and measure this with smart KPIs, and not talking about what will happen in 2060, but saying, okay, after 1 year or even after half a year, what has developed? Has the acceptance of tourism among the local population, for instance, improved by 5% or not? And if not, what can we do about that? So, and this is something based on a positive approach. It's not about shaming people and scolding people, but it's based on a positive psychology approach to have people enjoying what they are doing. And it is, first of all, it is a practical tool. So it's not just a nice idea we talk about and then go home again, but this is something on the one hand to analyze, but then to mitigate interest and align interests. So not finding compromises, because compromises, everybody feels he or she is a loser, but to align interests. And this is what the trainings are teaching people how to do that. And based on this, develop a strategy, develop KPIs to monitor the progress. We are publishing a Meaningful Tourism Index where you can compare yourself, your company, your destination with others. And of course, we also are developing this for students, for universities, that this can also be either a weekend program or a whole semester program for universities. And of course, the last point, that it also helps transparency in the discourse in the public, what is tourism about. So it was developed, very briefly saying, because of the discussions we had already before the pandemic, when we talked about over-tourism and saying it can't go on like that, we can't grow forever. But also then during the pandemic, where everybody was saying, yeah, we have to change something, we have the way tourism is done has to be changed. But after the pandemic, it was mostly forgotten, and people started again to talk about arrival numbers as a main KPI, which tells you nothing. And as a result, now we see that in many places, tourism is not longer seen as bringing joy and peace, but it's seen as creating unnecessary pollution. And tourism has moved from being the good guys to being the bad guys. And we better make sure that we get back to on the side of being the good guys. A few words about the development. So this was started by me in 2021. We did already 3 times a Meaningful Tourism Award, in Singapore first, and in Doha, and then in Kathmandu, and this year probably on Bali. We published a few publications about that, and last year the Meaningful Tourism Center Limited in the UK was officially started, and we also started the Meaningful Tourism Transformational Game workshops. And a very big step, a few weeks ago, PATA approved as a vision statement a meaningful Pacific Asia tourism industry, actually economy, I think, sorry. Peter Simon will talk more about this after me directly and explain this, the background for this. And also, as I mentioned briefly, we had a Meaningful Tourism Forum at the GITF fair in Guangzhou just last week. So if we go on, you can see some photos. So on the left-hand side, you see this was a moment in Istanbul last month when it was officially announced that the vision is a meaningful tourism, Pacific Asia tourism economy. And so also maybe just briefly to say, when we talk about meaningful tourism, we're not talking about meaningful travel, which is always concentrating on the traveler. And it's very nice to have a good experience and improve the experience of the traveler by eating locally and using public transport and so on. But it has to be, as we said, benefits and satisfaction for everybody. And so that's why we call this meaningful tourism, which of course is also including MICE, visiting friends and relatives, health tourism, education, travel, and so on. And it is the last paragraph is maybe the most important one. This is not a nice to have issue. It's not something you do because you're a nice person, but for many tourism service providers, that is a question of survival. That uh, beach tourism, skiing tourism, walking around in city centers, all this will not work anymore if you have 50 degrees Celsius and if you have algae and jellyfish in the ocean. So we need in something what Mr. Schumpeter called 80 years ago creative destruction. So and embracing destruction to create something new. And if you do this now, as a destination, as a company, as an organization, you have a chance to survive. If not, you might well be a victim of trying to keep the old way of doing things for too long. So one of the tools, and we have 3 trainers who will speak today, is the Meaningful Tourism Transformational Game Workshop. So this is a way in one day where you can learn about the ideas of meaningful tourism and the tools, the way to use it, how to develop smart KPIs, and so on. And it is a game, so it's a role play. So it's not that somebody is talking with PowerPoints all day and people falling asleep in the audience, but it's working in a way that everybody gets a role. And so somebody is a small souvenir shop owner, a 50-year-old lady, and somebody is a young gentleman as a receptionist as a hotel. Somebody is a local farmer. Somebody is a tourism minister, what have you. And so that people are learning what are the different interests of the different stakeholders and learn how to align these ideas. So, and this is something which is helping people in a role play, not only to listen and say, ah, yeah, interesting, but really to understand what are their interests in that specific role, so that stakeholders have objectively different interests, and but how they can be aligned. And of course, that is what the job of the trainers is, to help people to find the solutions by introducing best practices from other countries where already people have found solutions for their problem and so on. So going to the next slide. So as I said, this is offered as a one-day workshop for all companies and organizations, including, of course, destinations, and as a 2-day workshop, uh, either more intensively for companies and organizations, but also as an academic version for higher education institutions, for universities, where the students will need to gather more information, which if you do a workshop about your own company already, you know the information already. So obviously we have 6 stakeholders, so there should be at least 6 participants, but there can be up to 30 because within one stakeholder group, of course, there are different people with different results. And there will be a certified trainer doing this, and this is offline, certainly. It's not an online thing, but certainly face-to-face. But if wished for, I can, of course, also be appearing online for some time if that is useful. And the participants will receive, of course, a certification, and also the organizers will also get a certification so they can show their engagement for a better tourism. So, okay, I think we can skip that because of time. So this is how the one-day workshop is done. You can see some participants of the workshop we did in Bangkok in January, together with Pata. And so on the next slide, you can see what are the learning objectives. So understanding the meaningful tourism ideas, understanding how solutions can be developed in a non-hierarchical way, and the last point, develop KPIs. That's a very important part of it, so that it is something you really can transparently measure and see what's the outcome. And then we can see the next one. So what are what are key performance indicators? So you can see you have to measure things which are specific. So you have to clear definition, not just saying everything should be better. It should be measurable, so you should be able to measure them. Achievable, so it's something not something you say which is impossible to reach. Realistic, and of course timely, so that you say we want to do this within a certain period of time. And at the bottom you can see that this is one example here. And maybe I can use the opportunity to also to say, if you are watching this, so all the slides you see today and the whole video of the whole webinar will be online tomorrow on institutetourism.com. And of course, those of you who are looking on YouTube or on Zoom or on Facebook, welcome to all of you as well, of course. And also, so no need to take scans of the slides. You will get them tomorrow on the website. So with this going on, so what the participants get, of course, a nice certificate, and they have learned something. And for the companies, on the next slide, you can see that so the companies, organizations, destinations, so they have first of all, they have the possibility to take a step back and think about, okay, where are we now, and what with all the changes coming, with AI coming, with climate change coming, what do we have to change, and what are the steps forward? And also enabling different people to get a deeper understanding what the different stakeholders, which maybe others, what is their normal role in life, what they are need, and what are their needs, and what are their interests. And of course, doing this in the workshops, you will have some person on a low level in the company hierarchy having a role of being I don't know, the tourism minister, whereas the CEO might be a receptionist in the role play. And the smart KPIs for each stakeholder group will be a good start to develop this further. Of course, this is a one-day workshop. This is not, at the end, you don't have a perfect strategy, but this is the idea to give you the tools and the understanding to do so. And that can be done either by the organization themselves, or it can be done with the help of the Meaningful Tourism Center, or it can be done that you organize something yourself, and then we have a feedback session where we sit together and say, give some feedback to the strategy you have developed. So that can be done in many different ways. But this is clearly something which should really give you a tool to do something, and not just to say, oh yeah, it was nice to talk about it. And it's not about somebody should do something, or we aim in reaching a goal by 2060. But this is really for action, for making tourism more sustainable, and for making the destinations, the companies, the organization able to survive the bad things which will happen, unfortunately, in the coming decades. So let's have a look at the trainers we have at the moment. You can see we have a really nice variety of young people, older people, some professors, some people who have been CEOs of big hotel companies, or tour operators, a lot of experts in GSTC and ESG. And we have people, as you can see, already from all over the world, and there will be more trainers coming. So basically, we will cover more or less the whole planet and so if you're in a country we don't cover yet, and you're interested and to become a trainer, if you have some training experience and you're passionate for sustainable tourism, well, give us a shot. So that is for me as an introduction. For any further information, please contact us. There's a website, meaningfultourismcenter.org, or just drop an email. And with that, thank you very much for listening to the introduction. And now it's my pleasure to ask Peter Simon, the chairman of PATA, to tell us about the vision and the background, how PATA has developed the new vision of a meaningful Pacific Asia tourism economy. Peter, please take over.
Yeah, thanks so much, Wolfgang. Nice to see you again. We have to stop meeting like this, Wolfgang. We meet in Istanbul and China, and now we meet virtually today. Greetings to you and to everybody. I'm here in Bangkok, in Thailand. And as Wolfgang shared in his presentation, we had a really productive time last week. And it's always nice to hear, Wolfgang, your presentation about Meaningful. I think I'm here just in a very short period of time to sort of lend PATA's support to the whole Meaningful movement. And notice, Wolfgang, I have said movement because I think it really has a potential to become a movement. A little bit about PATA. So PATA stands for the Pacific Asia Travel Association, which was founded in 1951. And it was basically founded under the premise of post-World War II, helping the Pacific area, basically the Pacific Islands, to develop tourism in their islands. And it was to help alleviate poverty. And as Reza will be happy, it was about peace. It was about, now that peace has come to the world, let's let tourism prosper and grow. And it's interesting, if you look at tourism statistics from in 1950, there were approximately 25 million international visitor arrivals. And as we all know, this year, 2025, will probably reach 1.5 billion. So the tourism industry has certainly grown, and it's grown, beyond just being an instrument of peace, but it's also provided a lot of opportunity, particularly to disadvantaged groups that have been able to be part of the tourism value chain. A lot of enterprises across the tourism value chain are what we would consider micro and small enterprises. So there's really been a really positive view of tourism over the years. A couple of things that I think are really important, and part of the thinking that went into where PATA is today, in terms of our new vision, is that I think we realize that there's at least 3, if not more, existential threats that will affect the way that tourism, the way that we know tourism. Of course, one of them is climate change, and across our region, the Pacific Asia region, and particularly those Pacific Islands that I spoke of just previously. Climate change, small island developing states are really going to be affected by climate change. I worked in Timor-Leste for a number of years, and I've seen how climate change is changing that. It's also changing across the Asia-Pacific region. It's changing how long rainy seasons go on for, and how hot it gets. And so climate change is certainly one of the 3 existential threats that we see that we need to think about. The other one is really what I would say is technology disruption. And here we always talk about how wonderful technology will be in terms of supporting the development of the tourism industry, but there's also a lot of inherent risks in there. There's going to be digital divides, which could maybe, the haves and have-nots are going to be further apart. And then, of course, there's geopolitics and all of the, unfortunately, all of the unrest that is going on in different parts of the world is affecting tourism. So with these 3 existential threats of climate change, technological disruption, and geopolitics, we kind of felt like we had to go a bit deeper than just talking about sustainability. And I have to say that sustainability has become a bit of an overused word. And many times I see friends and colleagues, when you mention sustainability, they become a bit blurry-eyed. So unfortunately, our industry over the last 30 years has maybe overused the word. The other thing that I think is interesting is that when we try to measure tourism success, we tend to go back to these metrics that were Wolfgang mentioned before. You know, if you can't measure it, how can you manage it? And if the only thing that we're measuring kind of in a public realm is tourism arrival numbers, length of stay, and tourism spend, then are we really measuring, are we really honing in on what's important for tourism? And I think that as we've grown from a small industry to a very, very significant industry that represents almost 10% of the whole global GDP, it's become important for us to find more meaningful ways to measure how tourism succeeds. And I would go so far as to say that visitor numbers is becoming meaningless. And I wonder, you know, at what point are we going to grow up as an industry? So as a result of that, and I want to go as quickly as possible, Wolfgang, because I really want to get back into the whole thing of where you're going with meaningful. But as a result of all the things that I described, we decided at PATA for our next 75 years, hopefully, inshallah, you know, we're gonna celebrate our diamond jubilee in 2026, and then going forward, our vision now is a meaningful Pacific Asia tourism economy. And so we really want to instill some of the concepts and ideas that Wolfgang and some of the other panelists will be sharing during this webinar. We want to instill those in how countries start to measure tourism. And hopefully, as a result of that, we'll move away from the primary measure always being the number of visitors to maybe a deeper level. And I think one of the things that I use a lot, one of the terms I use is a good place to live is a good place to visit. And this is perhaps how we need to start to measure a tourism economy, how successful it is to the local, to the indigenous population. And if we get that right, then we'll be in a better position going forward to develop tourism that the visitor will be happy with, that will be profitable, and that will be sustainable in the long term. So once again, I just want to say that on behalf of the entire PATA community, which is about 600 organizations and governments across the Asia-Pacific region and really across the world, we're really excited to be part of this meaningful movement that Professor Wolfgang has instigated, and we're happy to be here. And I also encourage everybody on this webinar to learn more about PATA. We'd love to partner with you. We'd love for you to become members, and we'd like to find meaningful ways to continue to grow our industry in what I think is the best real estate in the world for tourism, which is the Asia Pacific region, with its beautiful you know, sceneries as well as its very unique cultures. So with that, Wolfgang, I hand it back to you. And again, PATA is very proud to partner with you and to partner with this entire program. So thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for your kind words, and thank you also for your interesting words. And indeed, PATA is celebrating 75 years next year, so that is it's even older than me. So, and yes, of course, we will continue to work closely with PATA and the different chapters in 32 different countries. So. With that, let's go down a level from the global to the country level, and or the regional level. And may I ask Dr. Ali Akak to take the floor and tell us something about what is meaningful tourism meaning for the Middle East and especially for Oman, where he is based. Ali, if you can start your presentation, please go ahead.
Yes, Professor, thank you so much. And first of all, I would say I would like to appreciate your invitation to be part of this exciting and provoking session, talking about something that is very important, which is about tourism, and we're more focused on meaningful tourism. It's Q2 here in Salalah, I mean in Oman. It's hot outside. And I won't take much time because I know there's the other two behind me, and also they have a time for questions. So I'll go a little bit fast. faster, and I don't want to spend more time, and I'm going to leave most of the questions. Of course, so this is a big topic for me to talk about the Middle East. If it's about Oman, GCC, want it to be easier, but about the Middle East, we need to think about it and how I'm gonna cover, in less than 10 minutes. All right, so
Anaknya itu umur berapa? Kecil.
so
10 ya? 10, 11, kelas 5.
okay. Is
Panjang.
it all right?
Banyak PR-nya yang gede. SMA kelas 2.
Hello, is it all right?
Halo, saya sebetulnya cobaannya banyak. Belum kalau ibu saya sakit kan nih. Saya ngurusin ibu saya juga. Saya sakit ngurusin ibu saya juga. Per 5 jam saya harus nyalapin. Ya 5 jam. Enggak. Ya ada penyakit lain.
Dr. Akak, please unmute yourself. I think your connection had a problem. Please unmute yourself, Dr. Ali. Okay.
Oh, all right. So you didn't hear the first part. All right.
No, we heard everything. It was just, I think on your line, there was some problem. We could hear some other voices, so I mute you. But it's okay now. Let's go ahead.
Great. As I said, I want a little bit faster, so I'm going to leave the rest for the time for the others. First of all, I would like to introduce myself, and thank you for Professor Wolfgang to introduce myself as Dr. Ali Akak. I'm from Oman. I'm an academic. I'm here at the University of Technology and Applied Sciences in Oman. I'm more in tourism and business. And my presentation was small about the meaningful tourism as a tool for tourism development in the Middle East. So as all of us are familiar with the Middle East, and it consists of almost 17 countries. So some of them are GCC countries, and we are talking about Yemen, Iraq, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, etc. So what will make it, as you know, and those have been to the Middle East, and you know how it is growing. The tourism in the Middle East, especially in the GCC countries, although some other countries, they have like a long history in tourism, especially Jordan and Syria and Lebanon, even before the GCC countries. So the Middle East rich in culture, heritage, relatives, significant nature, beauty. Especially here in Oman, we have a nice nature. The mountains, the beaches, and also the deserts. What makes the Middle East important? Because it's in the middle. If you look in the map, so we'll see it's located between Asia, Europe, and Africa. And it is like a nice spot for people to travel around the world. Some of the, traveling ticket, if you are flying with a plane, by plane, it's like 5 hours, 6 hours from Europe, 4 hours from countries, etc. Make it strong that now most of we are talking about the tourism in the GCC countries. We will see that some of the new governments, especially in the GCC, they have like started recently in tourism sector. When we look at other countries like Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, they're like 10 years before, like a decade, they were like well known for the tourism. But now most of the spots now on the GCC, especially the Saudi Arabia, the new destination for most of the countries, Emirates, Qatar, Oman. This is a small statistics about the recent numbers, and it's like 2020-24, and you can see that like 95 million international visitors to the Middle East. There is a growth like 32% from like 2019. Although there was there's the severe, during the pandemic, but now most of the countries are coming back, and they tried, to get back to the, back to the normal, before the pandemic. So there's like a surge growth in the tourism sector, especially with the tourists. There is a contribution GDP is more than 450 billion. Jobs, of course, you can see the developments happening in the Middle East, especially in the GCC countries, created many jobs, like more than 7 million in most of the countries. There's also the international visitor spending, more than 170 billion. And about the spendings, you will see most of the people people from the GCC or the Middle East like to spend money. That's why they travel around the world. Most of them we go to like now to go to the Asia, their favorite destination like Thailand, Malaysia, or go to the Europe, etc. So they like to spend. That is the good thing about the Middle East people. They like to spend and like to travel. And we're talking about the top countries currently. Yeah, I mean, in the GCC or the Middle East, you'll see Saudi Arabia around hitting the peak, Egypt, UAE, Qatar, and Jordan. Of course, the other GCC countries and the other Middle East countries are coming on the way. They are trying, but they have more time, but they cannot compete. Saudi Arabia, they have like intensive projects, mega projects, and also the Egypt with the pyramids. Emirates, they have a more focus on the business. They focus more on like the many activities in tourism. Qatar as well, we cannot forget about the FIFA, the FIFA Club World Cup 2022, and how was like put the Qatar on spot or be as an international destination. Jordan, with the history they has, come also as a good destination. Of course, Professor Wolfgang covered most of it, talked about the meaningful tourism. I was thinking what can I add, but I think I can say just in a few words, meaningful tourism is equal to practical sustainability. That is from my perspective. Also, it's not just a conceptual idol, it's a strategic necessity. And of course, it's a strategic path for diversity economies, empowering communities, and conserve environment. And I think Professor Wolfgang covered most of it. And why meaningful tourism matters in the Middle East? Of course, there are like 4 or 5. I tried to short them into 4 or 5 main points. Those like cover most what can the meaningful tourism can do for and how it's necessary and important for the Middle East. For example, the first adapting to the changing demands. Of course, like the tourists or the visitors. If you know about the tourist behavior, every time there are the new demands. The tourism cannot be stopped at the same levels. People like every day they have a new demands that make all the destinations, and the industry is growing because there is increasing in the demands. And we see that shift from mass tourism to the value-based tourism, focus about the culture tourism. Nature-based is very important now, becoming the tourism and community as well, the initiatives. Engage with the new market responsible. Another point I would like to spot on responding to the climate change. This is like the big things that now everyone is talking about around the world about the climate change. Of course, tourism can be a part of the game, can do something. For example, invest in eco-friendly. People now, they travel, they stop now. Some of people, they come up with the decision they not travel with airlines because of the carbon, etc. People started travel with the train instead of flying with the airlines. Promote low impact tourism, for example, hiking. The activities has changed as well. Encourage carbon offset and conversation project. Reduce pressure on vulnerable environments. Another point I would like to say here that can be useful for the Middle East, which is leveraging digital transformation. This is the AI. This is a new thing. This is a new era. This is the 4th revolution for industrial. So you see that's like there is a race between tourism destination, especially in the Middle East and particularly in the GCC countries, how they can become like a more tourism cities, how they can find more smart tourism. Using digital AR, VR. If you travel now to the Middle East, especially, for example, to Dubai, now need to use your passport. And now they're using AI for, to check in, to check out, and have seen that a lot in most of the countries around the world and also in the Middle East. Promote local businesses through the online platforms. That's what happened in the last 4 years. They see most of the people now rely on the become things like more online. Use data analytics for visitor management, etc. Another things can be regional cooperation and governance. And here it is important for create sustainable tourism. Everyone's talking about sustainable tourism. Of course, we need the frameworks and across all the countries, not just in the Middle East, even around the world. Strength public, the public-private community is very important. The partnership between these 3, the public, the private, and community, they need to work all together as a one team. You cannot exclude one of them because that will hinder or that will stop, the growth wheel or the development wheel, as we can say. To promote of the joint initiatives, of course, we need to do more initiatives, we need more projects on heritage conservation, because most of the countries and many countries around the world, it depends or rely on their nature, they rely on their heritage because tourism is a very important income source for them. So they have to also protect what they have as as a source of their income. Of course, they come through the heritage conservation, training, and promotion aligned with SDGs, the 17 SDG or the 17 goals. All the countries now around the world, and not only in the Middle East, and also the Middle East now, they are making all their strategy or their framework or their plans around the 17 goals. I would say that's another point I would say to be added here, strengthening identity and cultural resilience. Of course, this is very important in the Middle East, and of course, as a part of the meaningful tourism, protect, promote intangible cultural heritage, local voices in tourism storytelling, foster intercultural dialogue through the meaningful encounters, encourage pride and participation in culture tourism. And in the end, I would say just a few things that should be the future outlook or should be concerned in the Middle East, which is the steady growth in arrival and revenue. This is very important. Apart from what's going on in the Middle East, many people look at the Middle East, don't look for the bright side, or usually they look for what is going on. The conflicts happening between Palestine, in Iran, in Syria, in Lebanon, and Palestine. That is something can be. People look at this as the negative for the Middle East, but you should look at the bright side. Also, there should be a more stronger emphasis on sustainability. We need a lot. We need to have to do more on sustainability. Many people talk about sustainability, but still they don't know how to implement it. What exactly sustainability should be more? And I've seen many countries now, especially in the Middle East, maybe in the GCC, they now become sustainability very important, one of the pillars in their strategies. More tech-driven experiences and services, very important now. As I mentioned before, about the AI, about the technology has been incorporated or can be implemented in many services. Now, no more is like a paperwork. It's now everything can become digitalized, and that will ease for the accessibility for the tourist and easier for receiving more tourists and visitors to the countries. Greater regional collaboration, very important. As we live in the same area, in the same area, we should collaborate. All the countries, and not only the Middle East countries, also other countries should collaborate between each other in marketing and setting and policy. And also, I would like to look maybe after I'm listening to Mr. Simon about the PATA, I was thinking maybe there can be a good initiative if you can have the same PATA in the Middle East. That would be a great for the future, that also we can learn from the others. This is something can be seen or can be created here in the Middle East. And I would like to thank you everyone for listening to this. This is a short presentation, and I try to make it small and faster so the others can join us, and they can also share their insight and their information. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Very, very concise indeed, but also very meaningful. Very, very lots of information, and obviously, yes. So the PATA has been a very early on initiative of collaboration, and if it will be the PATA's decision to say we stretch the definition of Asia to include the Middle East, which technically it is, or how to do that. But certainly, I've been invited by Dr. Ali Akak to a conference in Oman a few months ago, and that was my first time I visited Oman. I've been, of course, many times in UAE, and so certainly this is an area where we will see a continuous growth of tourism in the coming years. So while looking at the time, so don't let me talk too much and go straight to Maite Redondo, who is joining us from Barcelona in Catalonia, Spain, and who will talk about from a European perspective. And after that, we will have Emmanuel Frimpong looking at an African perspective. So, Maite, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Wolfman. Good morning or good afternoon, evening to everyone from Barcelona. It's great to see so many tourism professionals around the world here. And it's an honor to be a certified trainer for Meaningful Tourist Center. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the topic that is critical, not just to Europe's economic fabric, but to its environmental and social well-being and for a better future of tourism. I don't have a presentation, but I have took some notes and I wanted to share with you. Across Europe, particularly also in Spain, tourism faces mounting challenges. Over-tourism in major cities like Barcelona, which is a topic now, Seville, or even in small cities like Cádiz in the south of Spain due to the cruise. Also then Florence, Venice, Santorini, and many more causing stress on infrastructure and local communities. Another issue is the environmental degradation in natural areas due to unmanaged visitor flows or lack of code of conduct for both suppliers and travelers. Economic leakage, where the benefits of tourism do not reach local residents or businesses. Workforce burnout, low job satisfaction, and high turnover in hospitality sector. Tourism is a sector where many workers are low paid. And finally, the growing dissatisfaction among both tourism and locals, visitors seeking deeper, more meaningful experiences, and residents feeling isolated from their own neighborhoods. These are the main issues, I think, for the whole Europe. And it is time now to move beyond surface level sustainability and embrace a transformational shift in how tourism is designed and delivered. This is where the Meaningful Tourism Transformation Game Workshop offers real promise. Why does this matter for Europe, Spain as well? In cities and destinations where mass tourism takes place, the result is that these places have exposed its vulnerability economically, socially, and environmentally. Recovery from these challenges demands co-creation, stakeholder alignment, and measurable outcomes. This workshop, the workshop that Meaningful Tourist Transformational Game offer, empowers stakeholders to understand each other's objective needs, puts in the other's shoes, encourages collaborative solutions that are scalable, realistic, and grounded, lays the foundation for holistic, sustainable destination strategies, and support reporting against SDGs standard, increasingly critical for funding and legitimacy. I will share some examples that we have through Europe that are has either led to significant issues or where better management is urgently needed. We have Venice in Italy. The issue is that severe over-tourism with cruise ships, mass tourism straining infrastructure and displacing locals. The result of this impact is the deterioration of local life, increased cost of living, and environmental damage of the lagoon ecosystem. And the management response has been to plan to ban large cruise ships and implement an entrance fee for day trippers, but long-term stakeholder engagement is still lacking. Another example would be Santorini, Greece. The issue is it is a small island receiving far more tourism than the capacity they have. So it's not as sustainable, it's not sustainable for the quantity of tourism they are receiving, particularly during cruise ship season. The result is overcrowding, waste management challenges, a pressure also on local water and energy supplies, and they need a strategy to balance tourism income with the protection of limited resources. Another example is in Croatia, in Dubrovnik. Tourism boom after being featured in pop culture, for instance, the Game of Thrones, but the old town became overwhelmed. The result we have is the infrastructure strain, resident displacement, and a shift toward a monoculture economy relying on tourism. Another one is in Iceland. The issue is rapid tourism growth following a global PR boom, but lacking infrastructure in rural and sensitive ecological areas. The result of this issue is that they are having environmental degradation, road damage, and a strain of emergency services. So they have now the opportunity to create destination management plans that involve local communities and protect fragile ecosystem. Another example is in Netherlands, in Amsterdam, where party tourism and Airbnb proliferation changed the character of the neighborhood, and the result is a rising housing prices, resident pushback, and the deterioration of local quality of life. In Paris, in France, the issue is that they have a high concentration of tourists around a specific landmark, like the Eiffel Tower, Louvre, while other parts of the city remain undervisited. The result is there is a pressure on a specific neighborhood, overdependence on short-term visits, and cultural delusion. So they need to promote decentralization of tourism and engagement with lesser-known districts in the city. And then Barcelona, of course, we cannot miss Barcelona now. So the challenge is a topic, is the over-tourism, especially in the neighborhoods like the Gothic Quarter, the beach, Barceloneta, has created friction between residents and visitors. The problem with Airbnb driving gentrification, public backlash, with protests demanding better regulation and protection of local life. The result has been to loss of local identity, housing pressure, resident protest, uneven tourism benefit, and there is the opportunity to implement zoning, support tourism dispersion, engage residents in planning via a stakeholder-driven workshop. With all the challenges in our countries, we need like a systematic plan that also is crossing border. And there is not a one-size-fits solution. Local context and stakeholder interests must be understood and addressed holistically. This is precisely what the Meaningful Tourism Transformational Game workshop facilitates, bringing the right people to the table to co-create balanced, data-driven, and practical solutions. Let's focus, for instance, in Barcelona, and to explore how the Meaningful Tourism Transformational Game workshop can help address these tourism challenges. We have already named the challenges that Barcelona is facing, and the solution with this game workshop is that with this role play, the role play can align a stakeholder, not to not to bring opposition, but to align them. And the workshop brings all 6 key groups to the table. Could be the residents, hospitality workers, tourism providers, city authorities, tourists, environmental stewards, and through role play, to facilitate dialogue and create empathy between the groups, and replace confrontation with co-creation, and building an understanding of each group objective needs. Another good point that the Meaningful Tourism has is to create a smart KPIs. That could be something that is concrete, that can be measured, like for instance, the percentage of housing stock used as short-term rentals, the resident satisfaction index in tourism-heavy district, the tourism revenue retained by local businesses, or the visitor distribution by district. With all these KPIs, we have a better picture, and we can bring practical tools for ongoing policy and performance measure. And then with all this, we can have the trust and transparency that we need to build up a better policy that is much more inclusive, that is not bringing non-top-down facilitation, and can share accountability, accountability to help confidence and democratize tourism planning. In conclusion, with all this measure, the Meaningful Tourism Workshop is not a silver bullet, it's a starting point for consensus building and system change. Reconnecting tourism and local values and priorities, guide data-driven decisions that are socially acceptable and environmentally responsible, and empower community without shutting the door on tourism benefits. As a conclusion, we must rethink that tourism is not as an extensive, is not an extractive industry, but as a shared experience that creates net positive impact on destinations. And the Meaningful Tourism Transformation Game workshop is not just a training tool, it's an action, a strategy that can help us to solve real problems. So it's time now to transform how we engage with tourism and to make it much more meaningful. And this is, for me, it's everything that I need to say. So thank you so much for your time and for having me here.
Thank you, Maite. Thank you very much. I think this was, again, a very clear and organized and structured way to explain the problems. And you mentioned a lot of these typical places where already before the pandemic we had the over-tourism debate, and clearly good examples that in Europe we cannot have tourism the same way it used to be before. And of course, you're based in Spain, and of course, with climate change and global warming, so there are more problems added to that, and so that is clearly something where not only Barcelona and not only along the coast, but also in the rest of Spain and the rest, as you mentioned, Europe, things needs to be done. So we are a bit behind time, but I think still not too much. So therefore, let's go directly, and already you can see the slides here, to Emmanuel Frimpong, who is the head of the Africa Tourism Research Center or Institute. Well, he can tell you better than me. And so, Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are here joining us from. I'll be quite quick because of time, but let me say a big thank you to Prof. Wolfgang, and also to Peter Simon for the opportunity to also listen to you, and to my earlier speakers and all the certified trainers. We are grateful for all of you. So I'm supposed to look at meaningful tourism for development of sustainable tourism in Africa. And I'll be focusing on balancing economic growth, cultural integrity, and environmental protection. Once again, my name is Emmanuel Frimpong. I'm the founding president of Africa Tourism Research Network, and I'm also a faculty at HOTCAT Training Institute. So I think we've heard what exactly meaningful tourism is all about from Prof and my earlier speakers. So basically, it is a human-centered approach to tourism. It focuses on mutual respect, value creation for tourists and host communities. It also emphasizes on authentic experiences, local benefit, and sustainability, which earlier speakers, especially Dr. Ali Akkad, also delve deep into it. So I won't go deep into these things. Now, what is the state of sustainable tourism in Africa? Again, because of time, I'm not going to go into specific statistics. But if you look at those of you that have been following tourism in Africa for the past 10 years, and especially just after COVID, you realize that tourism has really developed, or a lot of countries, a lot of governments are looking at the potential of their tourism offerings, because around the COVID time, we realized tourism was actually a backbone of most African countries, but we didn't even know until COVID started, when we were all locked down, and then we saw the impact of tourism that we have always overlooked. So now a lot more countries are looking at how they can develop their tourism offering. And the statistics are going up, as Peter also mentioned. Globally, we've seen massive increase in international tourism arrivals. So environmental and socio-cultural challenges. We have a lot of challenges as far as tourism is concerned, because a lot more people are now looking at other possible markets that they can travel to. And we have seen and heard of over-tourism in some European countries. So tourists are looking at, where do we go next? And obviously, Africa offers a lot of opportunity for these tourists, and they are looking to come to Africa. And of course, it poses environmental and sociocultural challenges for us as a continent. Well, opportunities are enormous. There's a lot of opportunities for growth, transformation in Africa. So we have not developed the tourism sector that much. So there's a lot of opportunities for growth and transformation for Africa. What is the linkage between meaningful tourism and sustainable tourism? Of course, there's a shared goal of equity, conservation, and economic viability. Meaningful tourism also enhances community participation, preserves local culture and environment. It also ensures long-term benefits for all stakeholders. And all stakeholders, we are talking about the stakeholders that Professor Wolfgang elaborated on quite well. So the link between sustainable tourism and meaningful tourism is very strong, and we need to make sure that we stress on it, and Africa also looks at how we can actually work towards it. Now, what are the key components of meaningful tourism in Africa that Africa must really focus on? Community-based tourism initiative. And Redondo also talked about it extensively, community-based tourism initiatives. That, I mean, most of you who have been to Africa before, you realize that Africa is more community-centered, community-based. We are more social than most of the other continents. So community-based tourism initiatives are very important for us to be able to have this meaningful tourism working in Africa. Ecotourism and conservation programs are also extremely important. Some countries are doing that in Africa, but a lot more are not focusing on ecotourism and conservation programs, because we are not doing that. There's not that level of exposure, training, capacity building in that sense. We don't have experts, a lot of experts in that area. So we need more experts in that area to be able to be eco-friendly so that we can conserve our environment and whatever we do. Cultural heritage tourism. There's no doubt Africa is culturally endowed. We have a lot of cultural heritage opportunities in Africa that tourists can come and experience our cultural heritage tourism. So we need to look at how best we can develop it and make it meaningful so that we don't exploit it in a way that will not benefit all of us. Capacity building and education. And here I call on PATA, which is one of the global giants when it comes to tourism, that you should be able to look at how best you can also collaborate and partner with African countries in the area of capacity building and education so that we can also take advantage of meaningful tourism in Africa. We have Namibia, which is enjoying community conservation and wildlife tourism. Ghana is doing a lot more around cultural heritage routes and festivals. Kenya, we have Maasai Mara community-led safari experiences, which is good. Other African countries are also looking at other areas that they can focus on. But the question is, how meaningful? How are we doing it to benefit our communities? That is what we need to really pay attention and see how best we can do that. Benefits of meaningful tourism to Africa. There's enormous benefit to Africa if we are going to look at meaningful tourism in a way that will help us as a continent. Of course, it empowers communities, local communities. It supports environmental conservation. It enhances visitor satisfaction and reduces tourism leakages. I think reducing tourism leakages are very important for us as a continent. More often than not, we get investors that come into the country and they invest in the tourism and hospitality sector. And what we see is that they repatriate, they take all their revenues, all the profit, everything they get, they send it back to their countries. So that the local community, the country itself in Africa does not benefit that much. So yes, meaningful tourism can be good for Africa, but we have to look at how we can block or reduce tourism leakages so that we don't get investors coming into the country and taking everything away, and then we end up losing out. What are some of the challenges and barriers to meaningful tourism as far as Africa is concerned? Limited infrastructure and investment. We are limited in so many ways in the tourism infrastructure. Investment opportunities are here, but we don't have a lot of. Can you hear me? Am I? Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Limited infrastructure and investment opportunities. Policy and governance gaps are huge. If you look at Europe, if you look at America, you look at Asia, policy and governance gaps is so wide. If you come to Africa, we need to improve, we need to develop on that. And then lack of awareness and training. I mentioned that, and I've seen quite a number of experts here, and we in Africa are open to receive you, to help us to actually be trained, to develop our skills and look at the skills gap that we have so that we can bridge it and be able to do a lot more as far as tourism is concerned. And of course, cultural modification risk. Some communities in Africa, as many as we receive tourists coming in, gradually there's cultural adulteration. If you come to Cape Coast, where we receive a lot of international tourists, now people in Ghana, in Cape Coast, are beginning to behave like Europeans, like Americans. So we are losing out our culture, our food, our language, the way we dress as a people. We are gradually losing it because of cultural modification that is taking place in most African countries. Of course, we are also losing our food. Now you come to most African countries, we have Chinese restaurant dominating. We have other countries that are bringing in fast food that are also taking place, and people are now interested in these fast food than the local food, the authentic African food that we have. So these are some of the challenges and barriers that we have. And what are the strategies that we need to implement as a continent to be able to take advantage of meaningful tourism and sustainable tourism? Policy alignment with sustainable development goals. I think Dr. Akkad mentioned the 17 development goals. So we need to look at how we can have policies that align with those sustainable development goals. Public-private partnership is so important for us to be able to do more as far as meaningful tourism is concerned. And also training and capacity development, monitoring and evaluation are all equally important for us to be able to develop our sector. What are the roles that we are also supposed to play as a continent? Government has a role in terms of policy and infrastructure. The private sector also has a role in terms of investment and innovation. Communities have a role of ownership and participation. They should be able to own the tourism attraction sites and participate fully so that nobody is left out. And tourists that visit Africa must also be responsible. They must behave responsibly and engage communities in a way that will benefit the community and they themselves as tourists. So to wrap up, meaningful tourism is a pathway to sustainable tourism. Therefore, there's a need for all of us to be part of it, engage, and make sure that the 6 stakeholders all benefit meaningfully. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you very much for this very packed full of information presentation and very thoughtful presentation and many things to mention. And just 2 points for me, I will have to think about more is certainly how can Africa avoid all the mistakes which have been made in other places. And you mentioned leakage. And of course, in many places, you see all-inclusive beach resorts where 99% of the turnover goes back and people even import like American beer or stuff like that. So very little is left for the local population as these people in all-inclusive resorts never go out. So no local business is getting anything out of that. And the other is, of course, culture commodification, so that the local culture is lost and trivialized, and maybe you have fake tourist versions of the local culture people start to believe in. And I think all this is, so Africa is, of course, starting a bit later in big numbers of tourists. So therefore, there is a chance to avoid the other. You have seen what all the other countries have been doing wrongly. So there's a chance to learn from. But of course, this is something we all have together work very hard for, so that not the same mistakes are repeated again and again in the African countries. So thank you for all the speakers. And well, we are a bit behind time, but we said at the beginning we want to answer a few questions which were put into the chat. And if you allow me to do so very quickly, there was one very good rather suggestion from Cambodia regarding Siem Reap, that so it would be a good idea to start a meaningful tourism center at the place where you can have trainings both for the tourists and for the locals, and also connecting this with artistic and cultural presentations, and just as we discussed now, the real stuff, not some commodified versions of that. So that is, I think it's a very good input to say, yeah, so to have a physical place, a house where you can see this where everything comes together. So Marie de la Place, she asked a question: is there scientific references related to meaningful tourism. And I can tell you, there have been a few articles published, and if you tomorrow we can download my slides, and on my slides you will find on one slide there are, I think, 3 publications mentioned. And also I can tell you that we are currently writing a chapter for a book which will come out later this year, and also I'm writing the next few days an article which will be published by a university academic magazine on Bali. So that should come out in rather quickly. But most importantly, also we have the Meaningful Tourism Weekly, which is free of charge, and you can subscribe to this from just go to our website, meaningfultourismcenter.org, and you will find the link. So this is published every week, and is also trying to give evidence. And so we are, of course, also have the idea to do a whole book on meaningfulness, concentrating on tourism, but not only talking about tourism. So there's some text already existing. For instance, in the Encyclopedia of Tourism and Hospitality, which was published by Dimitrios Bouchalis. There's a chapter on meaningful tourism and a couple of others, and more is in the pipeline. And of course, if you're interested, if you're writing your PhD or your master thesis or something like that, we are, of course, always happy to support such projects in that way. So I was asked, are the resources also in French? And this is a good opportunity for me to say again, so our trainings are offline trainings, and they are normally done in the local culture. So our trainers are in the countries. So, and therefore also, of course, the training material is in the local language. Of course, why if it is in Dubai, well, the local language is actually English, because the majority of people working in tourism are not from Dubai or from UAE. And the last question was that Leah Gatz asked, can I get an attendance certificate for the webinar? So actually, well, we haven't, in the past, we haven't done that, but
Yeah, I'm sorry, Wolfgang. Yes, they can.
they can. So therefore, even so, look, this is that is the Institute of Tourism. They take good care
They
of you.
just mail us, and we will issue for who request. We will issue free of charge to them.
So very good. So thank you so much. So and of course, coming to the end, the first thing I have to do is, of course, say a big thank you to the Institute of Tourism, Teresa Soltani, and all the people you can't see in the background, to make this again a wonderful and very well organized webinar. And as so you heard, we even can get a certificate from him. So from me, it has been a pleasure to see so many people, and really I had a look at the participants. So I think we covered really all continents, from Chile to Japan. So thank you all so much, and please consider if that is something which can help you as a tool. And of course, all our team is ready to support your way towards meaningful tourism. So with this, let me give our host, Reza, the last words. And for me, again, thank you very much. Stay safe and stay happy, and help to make the world a better place.
Thank you so much, Professor Wolfgang. It was really good. I just want to also mention and thank the United Nations Development Agencies having been here. Also, United Nations Women. They are always in our webinars. Thank you so much. And of course, they mentioned the importance of the women in tourism, which is very important. In fact, that's also meaningful tourism is doing. So definitely we did not forget. From tomorrow, the recording will be online on our website, including all the PowerPoints, the biography of all the speakers. You just can click on their name and you can see their page, and everything will be remaining there permanently. Also, there is a homepage for the Meaningful Tourism Center. You can go and see everything, or you click just contact on the Meaningful Tourism Center, and then you can see all the contact, the emails, and you can directly contact with Professor Wolfgang. Thank you so much, everybody. And if there is no more questions, we will end the session. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
There is one question. Raise my hand.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes. I ask